Hello, class. Today we will continue with the next lecture, lecture number 3 on volumetric properties of pure liquids. I would like to acknowledge Associate Professor Rowena B. Carpio as the main author of the slides, and some of the slides were also derived from the old course pack authored by myself and Ma'am Myra. Before we begin, let's go through the learning objectives. Number 1 is to state and apply the phase rule for non-reacting systems. Interpret the PT and PV diagrams, so that's pressure, temperature, pressure, volume. Diagrams for a pure substance. Draw and interpret the paths on a PV diagram. Compute heat and work requirements and property changes for mechanically reversible processes in the ideal gas state. Define and use the compressibility factor Z. Apply the two-term and three-term virial equation of state written in terms of pressure or molar volume. Solve any of the cubic equation of state where appropriate, and for the vapor or vapor-like and or liquid-like molar volumes at given temperature and pressure. Estimate the gas phase molar volumes by generalized correlations. Estimate the liquid phase molar volumes also by generalized correlations. Select an appropriate equation of state or generalized correlation for application in a given situation. But first, why do we need to study the volumetric properties of pure fluids? It's because these properties, such as internal energy and enthalpy, are often evaluated from measurements of the molar volumes as a function of temperature and pressure. And this is important for the design and safety of chemical engineering processes and industrial processes. Now, we can derive these volume, temperature, and pressure properties. So usually we determine the volume from equations of state or PVT relations. So you will see later on as we move through the lecture. First, we will discuss the ideal gas states, ideal gas state, and of course, you already know the ideal gas equation, and we will also discuss the appropriate equations to use to calculate for the heat and the enthalpy and the internal energy. Depending on the processes, say we have constant volume or constant temperature. But we will also, of course, it's important to discuss real gases. And you will also know the applicability of each model or equation or correlation that we'll be using. So it's important that before you um, use a model or equation or a correlation, that you know the applicability so that in the question, if there's a question and it's asking you to solve it, you will know which of the equations to use. Next, we define what is a pure substance. By definition, it has a fixed chemical composition throughout. So examples, we have compounds like water, carbon dioxide, and also uh, elements like nitrogen and helium. It can also be a mixture of two or more phases of a pure substance as long as the chemical composition of all the phases is the same. For example, if we have a mixture of ice and water, ice and liquid water, that is still a pure substance because even if there are two phases, the two phases are composed of water. But if we have a mixture of liquid and gaseous air, that is not a pure substance. Why? Because the liquid and the gaseous air would have a different chemical composition. And why? It's because the different compounds in the air or elements in the air would um, liquefy or would vaporize at a different temperature and pressure. So one phase would contain a different composition compared to the other phase. So it's not a pure substance. A pure substance can also be made of a mixture of various chemical elements or compounds as long as the mixture is homogeneous. For example, we air is debatable. Actually, when I search this in the internet, it says that air is not a pure substance. But if the air is just composed of, strictly speaking, O2 and N2 and a bit of carbon dioxide, and it's homogeneous and there's no other impurities like particulate matter, then it would be considered a pure substance. But I think the actual air around us, which may be contaminated with other particles and um, particulate matter, then that may not be a pure substance. So this one is debatable. A mixture of oil and water is obviously not a pure substance because it's not homogeneous. Next, we have the phase rule. I'm pretty sure that you know this already. It was developed by Gibbs in 1875. So this is the formula. F, or the degrees of freedom, equal to 2 minus the number of phases plus the number of chemical species. And the degrees of freedom would give us the number of independent variables that must be fixed to establish the intensive state of any system. Let's try to answer these um, questions. So given the phase rule, what are the degrees of freedom for each of the case? The first one is liquid water in equilibrium with its vapor. What do you think? Liquid water in equilibrium with its vapor. So let's use the phase rule. How many phases do we have? Two. So two. And then how many components or chemical species do we have? We only have water. So 2 minus 2 plus 1 equal to 1. So letter A, the answer is F, or the degrees of freedom, equal to 1. Next, we have letter B, liquid water in equilibrium with a mixture of water vapor and nitrogen. How many phases? 2, because we have vapor and liquid. And how many chemical species? We also have 2, water and nitrogen. So 2 minus 2 plus 2 equal to 2. So the answer for letter B is 2. Lastly, a liquid solution of alcohol in water in equilibrium with its vapor. So we have how many phases? 2 again. And then how many species? Also 2. So the answer is also 2 for letter C. So on the right, you'll see the phase diagram of water, but we will discuss this further in the next slides. So this is the PVT behavior of pure substances. On a 3D graph, as you can see, we have pressure on the vertical axis, and then volume on the horizontal x-axis, and temperature on the diagonal axis or z-axis. And so we have the different phases and on the 3D graph. And actually, we can derive the PV diagram, a PT diagram or PV diagram based on projections of this 3D graph. So for example, if we just project this side of the graph, you'll get the PV diagram. But if you project the uh, right-hand side of the graph as shown on this figure on the right, so what you will get is the PT diagram. So this is also the PT diagram. Now let us discuss the parts of a PT diagram one by one. So on the y-axis, you have the pressure, you have the temperature on the x-axis. So we have curves and also we have points on the graph. So the curves here separate the different uh, phases. So for example, the sublimation curve separates the solid from the gas region. The fusion curve separates the solid from the liquid, and the vaporization curve separates the liquid from the vapor. So I'm sure that you have encountered this before in chem. And one thing about these curves or lines is that they have single degrees of freedom. So F equal to 1 for uh, for any point on this line. So what do I mean? If the point lies on the line, say, for example, the sublimation curve, that's a mix between a solid and the vapor. So it means that the substance is in equilibrium between a solid and a vapor. Just fixing one uh, property, say the temperature, automatically gives you the pressure. So you don't have any choice anymore. If you fix the temperature, automatically pressure is also fixed. Say we have the a point on the vaporization curve, which is equilibrium between the liquid and the vapor. So if I choose a pressure, automatically on this line, since the degree of freedom is 1, I can only choose the pressure. There's no choice for the temperature. It's already determined by determining the pressure. So that's what it means to have a degrees of freedom equal to 1. But if we have um, a point outside of the line, okay, and on the regions, okay, say the liquid region with the degrees of freedom equal to 2, so the number of phase is just 1. Okay, so 2 minus 1 plus 1, that would give you 2. I can choose two properties, pressure or temperature. Okay, so if I choose a temperature, I can go vertically choosing any pressure. If I choose a pressure, I can also choose horizontally any temperature. So that's degrees of freedom equal to 2. Okay. Next, we have triple point, and what is the degrees of freedom for this one? The number of phase is 3. So the solid, liquid, and vapor are equilibrium with each other. So 2 minus 3 plus 1 equal to 0. So we cannot choose any pressure or temperature. The triple point is already at a given pressure and temperature. We also have on the right hand side the critical uh, point. So we have the critical temperature at the bottom and the critical pressure on the left hand side. So let's try to track the critical point from the curve to C. So from this from the triple point to point C, and that would give us the vaporization curve. So on the vaporization curve, we have an equilibrium of liquid and vapor. So as we journey upwards, okay, towards the critical point, um, the the properties of these two phases become more and more alike until they reach point C, and wherein they become identical. And what the meniscus dividing the two phases disappears, and that is at the critical point. So beyond the critical point, the transition from liquid to vapor and vice versa do not cross the vaporization curve. So unlike on this region on the left of the below the critical point, the transition from liquid to vapor region passes through the vaporization curve, but outside the critical point, it does not go through the vaporization curve. Okay. So it does not include the usual vaporization step. So this region here, above the critical pressure and above the critical temperature is the fluid region. So it's neither a gas or a liquid. Okay, and then we also have the gas region here. So what's the difference? Actually, between a gas and a vapor, the gas region is actually divided into two. So the one is on the left of the critical temperature, and we call that the vapor region. And so a vapor is which is on the left can be condensed either by compression at constant temperature. So constant temperature, that's a vertical line, and we can compress a a gas to a liquid by increasing the pressure. So we can compress a vapor. So the technical term, okay, for this region right here, which is this entire region here is the gas region, but on the left of the critical temperature, we can specify it as the vapor. So the vapor can be condensed to a liquid by increasing the pressure, or can be condensed to a liquid by decreasing the temperature at constant pressure. On the other hand, on the right-hand side of the critical temperature, still in the gas region, we call that a supercritical uh, fluid. For example, an example of a supercritical fluid, we have atmospheric air. So another thing that I want to highlight on the PT diagram is when you try to cross from the between two phases, you can either trace the steps. For example, at constant pressure to cross from the solid to liquid region. At constant pressure, you can increase the temperature, and also you from solid to liquid, you can also at constant temperature this time you can decrease the pressure. So for each of these curves right here, you can trace the paths with, between crossing the faces. Okay. So next we have the PV diagram this time. So on the y-axis you have the pressure, and on the x-axis you have the volume. So just like the previous PT diagram, we have the curves. The lines here represent the equilibrium between two phases, and the regions would um, the regions would represent the phases, except for the ones inside the curve, we have an equilibrium between two phases, the liquid and vapor, and here on the bottom of the screen, we have the equilibrium between the solid and the vapor. All right. Okay, correction. Actually, the curves here would now represent the single phases, and the regions are become the equilibrium between two phases. Because as we go back to the previous slide, um, at the PT diagram, uh, the two-phase situations are actually represented by by curves. If we project the 3D graph, okay, like this one, but if we project it to the PV diagram, actually the two phase become regions and the single phase become curves on the graph. Okay, so please, uh, I correct I corrected the previous statement. So we have the line right here representing the solid phase, and the line right next to that is the liquid phase, and we have the vapor. And one thing that we can also note from the graph is this point C right here on the top of this curve. So that's the critical um, point. So it gives us the critical pressure and the critical volume. And we have the isotherm, the dashed line, okay, right here, T sub C. This isotherm meaning this curve right here, T sub, which gives us the T sub C, is just one temperature. All right. So on the right figure, it's actually the same, but showing many isotherms. Okay, many isotherms. So what do we notice? So for example, let's consider the isotherm wherein the isotherm T2 ay less than the critical temperature. So it begins as a liquid, okay, here, right here, and as it enters the curve, which is the equilibrium between liquid and vapor, it the curve uh, becomes a straight horizontal line, and then as it exits to the vapor as a vapor, okay, so this is a vapor, um it's not anymore, okay, a straight horizontal line. So inside the curve, we also call that saturated liquid vapor because it consists of um the liquid and two phases, uh, vapor and liquid, so it's said to be saturated. So the question is, how come it becomes a straight line as it entered the saturation region of where liquid and vapor are in equilibrium? So again, this is an isotherm. So remember that we only have 1 degree of freedom if it's a mixture of liquid and vapor in equilibrium of, or if we have a saturated liquid vapor mixture. So fixing the temperature, which is this one, the isotherm also fixes the temperature. So that's why it's horizontal, perfectly a horizontal line right inside the curve. So now let's look at, so we're done with the critical temperature. So outside the critical temperature, this isotherm right here, as you can see, is uh, just a smooth line. So it does not, unlike the temperatures below the critical point, which becomes horizontal. So outside the critical point, the curve right here, okay, is just a straight, smooth curve. So there's no part wherein it becomes a horizontal line. So one thing that we also um, observed from the PV diagram is, uh, so there's no temperature in this diagram. We have P and V on the axis, but we can represent the temperature as isotherms on the diagram. And as we move from one isotherm to the other in ascending direction, that would indicate increasing temperature. Okay, so well, just notice that a critical point is right here, and above the critical point are higher temperature. So that means as we move from bottom to up of the diagram, the temperature increases. So we have another diagram, the TV diagram. We did not discuss this in detail, but here we have a temperature and volume. Um, So in a TV diagram, pressure can be represented by isotherms right here. And as we move from the bottom towards the top, that would represent increasing pressure. Okay, so please remember that. What other things can we derive from PVT surface? So just like what I've mentioned, we can observe the phase rule, okay, based on the um, PVT surface. So if we have a pure substance existing as a single phase, then the phase rule would tell us that two variables must be specified to determine the intensive state of the substance, just like how I demonstrated that from the PT diagram. So fixing any two would automatically give us the third property. So the third property is a function of those two. So that's why we can represent P, V, and T on a 3D surface. So this is just a mathematical representation of that. So this graph here is a function of the pressure, volume, and temperature. And there in a single phase, we can um, there's a unique relation connecting the pressure, volume, and temperature, and we call that connection or relation the equation of state. The simplest one, I'm sure you're very familiar, is the ideal gas state, which relates PVT by using the constant R. Okay, so this really, but of course we also have other equations of state, as the simplest one is the ideal gas. So an equation of state may be solved for any one of the three quantities given the values of the other two. So if we have the volume and the temperature, we can solve for P. We have the P and V, we can solve for T, and so on. So for example, we can represent V as a function of the temperature and pressure. So let's uh, define the terms. So I've been throwing a lot of terms before this slide, but now this is the technical definition of these terms. Phase is a distinct molecular arrangement that is homogeneous throughout, separated from the others by easily identifiable boundary. Okay? So if a liquid phase can uh, specifically, we have a liquid phase if it can be vaporized by reduction of pressure at constant temperature. Um, just like how I demonstrated that. So it can be vaporized by um, reducing the pressure at constant temperature. And next is gas if it can be condensed by reduction of temperature at constant pressure. Condensed by reduction of temperature at constant pressure. Condense. Okay, so condense by reduction of temperature at constant pressure. So that is a gas. Or so gas encompasses the vapor and on the right hand side of the um, critical temperature. Okay, so I defined that earlier. Fluid, if it's neither the above definition, so it's neither gas nor liquid. Triple point, where three phases coexist. Critical point, the highest temperature and pressure of a pure substance that can exist in vapor and liquid equilibrium. So just like how we trace by this curve right here. So initially, you have an equilibrium between vapor and liquid, and as we increase the pressure and temperature, that boundary between them disappears. So that gives you the critical point. Saturation temperature, the temperature at which pure substance changes at a given pressure. Okay, so if we have pressure, say this one, this horizontal line, this corresponding temperature on the uh, vaporization curve would give you the saturation temperature. Okay, we can, it's also applicable on the other curves, but we usually use it for the vaporization curve. Saturation pressure, um, this is the pressure at which pure substance changes given at a given temperature. So just um, like the saturation temperature, if we have at a given temperature, whatever the pressure that lies on the um, two-phase line, or the equilibrium between liquid and vapor curve, or the vaporization curve, would give you the saturation pressure. Okay? So next we have saturated fluid, fluid containing vapor and liquid, which are in equilibrium. And we also call that wet vapor. So other definition, we have latent heat, the amount of energy absorbed or released during the phase change. Latent heat of fusion if it's during freezing, and latent heat of vaporization during condensation. And we also have an additional definition, so please remember this, because I know all of these terms you are familiar already. But for quality, okay, it's the fraction or weight of a saturated vapor in a mixture of such, and for moisture, it's 1 minus x. Okay, so our quality represented by x, we're talking about the percent of the saturated vapor in that mixture. So 1 minus x, since x is a fraction, would give us the percentage of saturated liquid in that mixture. So we will be using that in our calculations. The other more definitions, we have compressed subcooled liquid, so used interchangeably. Or well, they are actually distinct from one another, but they both mean liquid which is not about to vaporize. Compressed liquid is one whose pressure is higher than the saturation pressure corresponding to its temperature. Okay, so let's look at the PT diagram. This is the um, compressed liquid region, so which the pressure is higher than its saturation pressure. So this is, say, at a fixed temperature, this is the saturation pressure. For a subcooled liquid, the pressure is higher than the saturation pressure. Next is the subcooled, I mean for a compressed liquid. So that is a compressed liquid. Subcooled liquid, one whose temperature is below its saturation temperature corresponding to its pressure. Okay? So at a given pressure, this is the say this one, this is the pressure. So this is the saturation temperature, right? On the vaporization curve. So a subcooled liquid would have a lower temperature. Okay, but they both represent the liquid region. So compressed versus subcooled liquid. Other definitions: saturated liquid, liquid that is not about to vaporize, exists at the saturation temperature at a boiling point, or boiling point at a given pressure. So I will just let you trace that on the diagram. Saturated vapor, vapor that's not about to condense. And the mixture of that is that coexists in the equilibrium. Okay. So it exists at the saturation temperature. Saturation temperature is the boiling point at the given pressure. So another term, maybe more used than saturation temperature, is the boiling point. Superheated vapor, vapor that's not about to condense. and it exists at a temperature above the saturation temperature. So if it's above the boiling point right here, okay, above the boiling point, so any region right here, it's superheated, okay? So what's next is so let's trace the formation of steam. So let's focus on steam as our substance. Say we have the cylinder container set up, the contents containing water. Right? So the pressure is 1 atmosphere, but the temperature is 20 degrees. So what do you think is the state of water? So it's still liquid, okay? So it's still um subcooled liquid. Okay, subcooled liquid. Then we okay, so subcooled or compressed. And then we apply heat by this candle and we allow it to reach 100 degrees Celsius. Uh, but it's not yet it does not yet have saturated vapor. So this is saturated liquid. That's one. So once the vapor appears, then that's a saturated mixture right here. So there's already vapor and saturated liquid. And then we further apply the heat, but still at the same temperature, 100 degrees, which is the saturation temperature or the boiling point of water, so that all of the saturated liquid is transformed into vapor. Okay, so this is that point 4. So please be mindful of the points in the graph. And then finally, we increase the temperature to 300 degrees Celsius. That's way above the boiling point. Then you get the superheated vapor or superheated steam. Okay. You may also trace that on the um, TV and PV diagram. Okay, you may also, but we traced it on the TV diagram. So it means that, well, for atmospheric pressure, the boiling point of water is 100 degrees, but this one, right? But at different pressures, it would have a different boiling point. Okay, so if the atmosphere is thinner, so the pressure is lower, or yeah, the pressure is lower, so the boiling point of water would be lower. Okay, so as we increase the saturation pressure, the boiling point will also become higher. Okay, so now let's try example 1. Okay, by the way, before we answer example 1, there's a correction on the title of this handout. This should be pure fluids, so you're not limited to liquids, but pure fluids, also the gas. So please correct. So let's read the problem. The saturation temperature of pure ethanol is at 10 bars and 150 degrees Celsius. Can you guess if ethanol is liquid or gaseous in each case? Given, okay, wait. Given ethanol, okay, ethanol, the saturation temperature Tsat equal to 150 degrees Celsius. So correction, pressure and temperature. Okay, so Tsat is 10 bars required. Uh, Determine if liquid or gaseous. For letter A, the temperature is 100 degrees Celsius, and pressure is at the P equal to PSAT 10 bars. Okay? So because the temperature is below the saturation temperature, for letter A, ethanol is liquid. Liquid. Okay? Next is for letter B. Okay, for letter B, the temperature is 150, which is equal to the saturation temperature. So T equal to Tsat equal to 150 degrees Celsius, but the pressure is only 5 bars. Okay? So so let me put here a symbol that, so less than, uh, hold on. Let me move this one. So I can put a symbol right here that it's less than Tsat. Less than Tsat. Okay? So this one is less than PSAT. Okay, so less than PSAT. Therefore, the phase is liquid. I'm sorry. Okay, so that's wrong. So the pressure is less than PSAT. Okay, it allows for more movement, for the molecules to move more around. There's less pressure. So therefore, ethanol is gaseous. Okay. Okay, so ethanol is gaseous. Next is letter C. Temperature is 200 degrees. 200 degrees Celsius, which is greater than Tsat, and the pressure is 10 bars, which is equal to PSAT. Is it correct? Hold on. So the temperature is greater than Tsat, therefore the phase is gaseous. Okay, so more energy, higher temperature, more energy to move around. Finally, for letter D, temperature is 150 degrees Celsius, equal to Tsat, but the pressure is 12 bars, which is greater than PSAT. Okay. So therefore, more pressure, less freedom for the molecules to move around, so it's liquid. Okay. It's liquid. So I hope that problem is clear. Okay, so more, this is not a calculation, more of analysis. Okay, so moving back to the lecture, as I've mentioned before, the gas is used to refer to a substance that's normally gaseous state at ordinary temperature and pressure. So when if you go back to the slide right here, so the region, this region on the right, that would refer to the gas region. But the part of the gas region is the vapor, okay, where it can be condensed either by compression at constant T and cooling at constant P. So I already demonstrated that. Is the gaseous form of any substance that is liquid or solid at normal temperature or pressure. For example, we have at one temperature, I mean 1 atmosphere, Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So I was sharing this slide, no, gas versus vapor. Right. Okay, so for example, water vapor and oxygen gas at 25 degrees Celsius and 1 atmosphere, water will exist. Okay, so water can exist as water vapor and oxygen will exist as oxygen gas. Hmm. Well, at 1 atmosphere, the temperature is low, so for water, it would be liquid. Okay, I need to check why it's water vapor here. Anyway, oxygen would exist as a gas. Okay, so let me double check what do we mean by this slide right here. So now we move on to the PVT relation, but I guess I would end this video and continue to the next topic in the next video.